-120 favorite. Brad Tavares is the even money underdog. This fight clock is brought to you by Modelo. You may have seen a tweet a moment ago. One DraftKings bettor has 20 large on Shoeface tonight. See if he cashes.
These guys that bet $20,000 on underdogs, man, they're so brave, or they just have way too much money.
Tavares has been ranked as high as number 8 in the world. He fought Yoel Romero back in 2014. He was favored to beat Robert Whitaker in 2015. So a lot of skills, especially when it comes to the stand-up game.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Good work already from Carlos Jr. to use his hands to set up any possible takedowns that he expects to use in this fight.
You saw Antonio Carlos Jr. kind of throw a combination there. It didn't look like the cleanest combination, but it did get its desired result. You see Tavares having to back up. It's when you back up on a straight line is when he will throw those odd punches and then change levels into a double leg.
The UFC Twitch channel is giving away a one-of-a-kind custom UFC-themed Xbox Series X. Head over to UFC.com/sweepstakes for official rules to enter, and check out the UFC Twitch channel for more ways to win. That's UFC.com/sweepstakes to enter for a custom UFC-themed Xbox Series X. Restrictions apply.
Tavares is doing a really good job of keeping the head down, foot going towards the mat as Carlos Jr. is on that high crotch. It's hard to finish a shot whenever your head's down and your butt's out.
And beautiful flexibility as well from Tavares there. Carlos Jr. had that leg all the way up over his shoulder. He was able to punch him in the face and then pull that leg back. That's a good start for Tavares to be able to defend that takedown already.
Especially when they're fresh, right? Carlos Jr. is a big, strong guy. And he's going to feel stronger. Oh, that is
wow.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that defense there from Tavares.
Look at Tavares float the position.
Yeah.
He never got his feet in cement. He just continued to move backwards and float and stuff the head of Carlos Jr.
And we're talking about a man who's coming off ACL surgery, DC, as well.
Well, John asked him a great question in the fighter meetings about what was that first wrestling practice like after an ACL surgery. Right there, the way he defended that shows that he's very confident in the recovery that he got after having that surgery.
And you do see some of that Antonio Carlos Jr. power. Sometimes people fancy him a specialist. Did have a couple knockouts on the Ultimate Fighter Brazil at heavyweight. Has yet to produce a knockout as a pro. Those were exhibition fights, but he is not a one-trick pony.
And that's why he's able to get in on these shots so far, John. Even though he hasn't been able to execute them fully and get the fight to the ground, he's setting them up. He's doing the right thing so far by throwing big punches. And like you said, DC, maybe not the sharpest or the cleanest combinations, but they're landing.
Mm-hmm.
Although Tavares will take some shots.
Absolutely.
I'm worried about that.
And that's got to be discouraging for Carlos Jr. to have gotten in so deep on 2 occasions and has not had any success with taking Brad Tavares down. I love how Tavares attacks the hands and he keeps his... Wow.
Incredible.
I mean, that was fantastic. The way he pushed Carlos Jr. down towards his legs.
And just pop right back up. Now, he's in deep on this shot. He dig that underhook or pull.
Look how he's lifting him up. Once he lifts him up, he's pretty safe.
He's already on the butt. If he can pull up onto his lower back, he can start really fighting this takedown. The hands are already broken, it looks like. Yep, the grip is broken. That's a good start. There we go. That's got to be frustrating for
He has certainly done the right work in training. A second camp in preparation of Antonio Carlos Jr.
Good jab there from Carlos Jr. Oh, nice right hand.
You can see the difference in the technical skills in the striking of Tavares and Carlos Jr. Carlos Jr. does a good job of throwing that jab. He's a big, long guy. He's real good leg kicks, but when he tries to string them together, he isn't as fluid. Tavares is very fluid with the jab, with the double jab, right hand. Beautiful check there by Carlos Jr.
2 power teams going head-to-head here. Extreme Couture's Tavares, American top teams Carlos Jr.
I mean, the resurgence that this team in Vegas has had over the last year or so has been tremendous.
Stiff jab
Got
there.
to start with the redhead Eric Nixick. He's got red hair, right? Yeah. Just making sure. All right.
Well, Paulie Felder's got some red hair.
Reddish.
Ray Cephalo's a tremendous coach.
Yes, of course.
I've been able to work with Coach Ray before, and
yeah,
I mean the kickboxing level of this man is fantastic.
He was giving me lots of advice today, DC, when I was hitting pads with Eric, and just the little subtleties that he's able to pick up on from his experience is incredible.
Carlos is doing a really good job of finding the home for his jab.
Yeah, his jab is very sharp tonight.
It's so long. I mean,
yeah, I was going to say, you got to use that reach,
advantage. Right? Yeah, John spoke to the reach advantage of Carlos Jr., and he has used it.
Two.
Oh, he's good now, though. The cobwebs are a little clear.
That right hand ain't going to help matters for the Brazilian.
You hear the corner saying 1-1-2 to Tavares. Would be jab, jab, right hand. If he lands that, he can hurt him again.
Nice jab from Tavares. Round 3 coming up.
You know, Carlos Jr. is checking these kicks, but he's checking them almost right on the kneecap and in that sensitive area of the knee. He's not getting his shin on there. So even though it might also hurt Brad a little bit, it is definitely damaging that lead knee.
Carlos Jr. unofficially 1 for 7 on his takedown attempts thus far.
Nice jab there from Tavares.
And Carlos has landed shots, right? He has done a good job of landing punches, but he needs to get this fight to the ground. And the problem is his positioning. Look at his positioning. Look at all that space between his hips and Tavares' hips. His head is down towards the mat. You don't get your head and chest in front of your legs when you're wrestling. You got to work from the butt up. Everything needs to be in. The butt needs to be the hips, butt, everything in. Start to get close, create angles. Ricky Simone did that beautifully the other day. He never broke position when he was trying to score takedowns, and it led to him getting countless takedown opportunities.
Tavares fights for the underhook. Just over 3 minutes here to go in this fight. Versus position here. Carlos Jr. too strong there in the clinch. Goddard separates the fighters. Back to the center now.
Nice leg kick there from Carlos Jr.
I mean, that inside leg kick of Tavares has landed on so many occasions. Notice when Tavares switches and slips punches, though, his outside hand is down. So if Carlos Jr. throws a hook after his jab, he may be able to land.
Counter knee.
There it is again. Gets that foot off the canvas so quickly. Carlos Jr. returns.
Oh, beautiful
nice
counter,
slipping right
yeah.
hand.
Slipping right hand by Tavares.
Tremendous shape for Brad Tavares, too, because fighting off that many takedowns and then looking this fresh on your feet, it's not easy to do.
Well, we've seen him fight the best of the best in the division, right? He went 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya. I mean, nobody goes 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya. He's finished just about everybody. You got to be extremely tough in order to push the champ all the way to the final bell. What I'm most impressed with, though, is the takedown defense. I mean, it has been fantastic from the very start of the fight. Fresh, a little bit tired. He has done everything he's needed to do to stay upright.
And if you've watched Shoeface's UFC career, when it comes to his entries and his strength, he's been able to get a lot of elite middleweights down. Tavares has stuffed 10 of 11 shots unofficially.
I mean, that's about as good as you can get. It's almost as good as you can get.
trying to put the finishing touches on what would be a 13th UFC win in his 19th UFC appearance.
I mean, if you're a shoe face, you start to run the pipe going in the back direction with your hand there. Tavares is so well versed in defending takedowns. All you got to do is try to set him down.
He needs to just break off and throw bombs. You're not winning the fight trying to get this last 5-second takedown.
Right.
Good stuff, Rat. Hey, give me hands up.
All right, so Tavares and Carlos Jr. go the 15-minute distance.